What would you do if you discovered your boss was faking documents for federal clients and using your name to cover it up? My name's Jessica, and for a long time I thought I had found a stable place in a world that didn't promise much of it. I worked at a small IT company tucked away in an aging office complex with flickering fluorescent lights and breakroom coffee that could strip paint. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, or at least that's what I told myself. At first, I loved it there. My manager, Stan, was the kind of guy who wore the same blue button-downs every week and clapped people on the back like a proud uncle. The atmosphere was casual, the work straightforward. Fix some server issues here, run some security updates there, make sure the clients stayed happy. It felt good to be useful. It felt safe. Until it didn't. It started small, tiny discrepancies in the documentation. Missing signatures on client forms. Project logs that didn't match up with billing reports. At first I thought it was just sloppiness. Everybody was busy. Deadlines got crazy. I mean, who hasn't rushed through paperwork to meet a looming delivery date? But it kept happening. I'd dig into a file and find numbers that didn't add up. A project supposedly completed in 3 weeks that I knew took 6. Invoices showing services that had never been delivered. One afternoon, while combing through some archived emails to resolve a client's billing question, I stumbled onto a thread that made my blood run cold. Just adjust the hours on the final report. They'll never check. It was from Stan. About a government client. A client that could very well audit us at any time. I sat there at my desk, staring at the screen while the office hummed around me. The overhead lights buzzed. Someone's chair squeaked rhythmically. Across the aisle, my coworker Paul slurped a soda like he was trying to vacuum it through the straw. Life went on as if nothing was wrong. And for a long time I let it. I was scared. Jobs in IT weren't exactly growing on trees in our town. Most companies wanted flashy resumes filled with cloud certifications and cybersecurity degrees. I had neither. Just a decade of practical experience and a knack for fixing things nobody else could be bothered with. If I raised my hand, if I rocked the boat, what then? Still, the feeling gnawed at me. Every day it got a little harder to ignore the way Stan avoided my eyes during meetings. The way the project managers whispered behind closed doors. The way our finance guy, Mark, always seemed to smirk when someone mentioned clean audits. I told myself to mind my own business. To focus on my work. To stay safe. Until the day everything exploded and staying quiet was no longer an option. It happened on a rainy Wednesday, the kind where your clothes stay damp all day and the sky feels like a lid pressed down on the world. I was halfway through my 3rd cup of burnt coffee when the call came in, a furious client demanding to know why their servers had crashed after a routine upgrade we supposedly completed 2 weeks ago. The thing was, we hadn't completed it. I remembered the job clearly because I'd flagged the hardware as incompatible with the update. The ticket had been mysteriously closed anyway. We followed your documentation, the client's IT manager snapped through the phone, his frustration leaking out like steam from a kettle. You signed off on it. I promised to call him back and hung up, my hands trembling slightly. My signature. On a job I hadn't finished. I marched straight to the records room, a tiny windowless closet that smelled like old paper and printer toner, and started digging. It didn't take long to find the work order. Sure enough, there was my electronic signature, neat as you please. Someone had copied it from an older report and slapped it onto the newer one. That was it. The line I couldn't pretend not to see anymore. That afternoon, I wrote a letter to management. No emotional outbursts, no dramatic accusations, just a clean, formal outline of what I had discovered, complete with attachments, timestamps, and document versions. I CC'd HR and even printed a hard copy for good measure. When I hit send, I felt an odd mixture of fear and relief. Like jumping off a cliff and not knowing whether you'll fall or fly. 3 days later, I got called into a meeting with HR. No Stan. No upper management. Just a tight-lipped HR rep named Linda and a paper folder sitting in front of her like a loaded gun. We regret to inform you, Linda began in her brittle voice, that due to staff reductions, your position is being eliminated, effective immediately. Staff reductions. Funny how they only ever reduced the staff that knew where the skeletons were buried. I was escorted out with a small box of my things and a hollow feeling in my chest. In the parking lot, the rain had stopped, but puddles still glistened like little mirrors, reflecting a version of me I barely recognized, soaked, betrayed, and very, very tired. But not broken. Because deep down I knew, I hadn't made my last move yet. Not by a long shot. I spent the weekend replaying it all in my head, every ignored discrepancy, every smug look from Stan, Every time I'd been told to, just leave it alone. But now I was outside the system. I had nothing left to protect except my own integrity. And maybe something else. You see, I'd kept copies. Not because I was planning anything at the time, but because I'm the kind of person who documents everything. Backups, version histories, screenshots, old habits die hard when you work in IT. So I pulled out an old external drive the size of a paperback novel and started digging. In the privacy of my apartment, still littered with the takeout containers and crumpled tissues of an emotional implosion, I laid out the digital trail like a forensic crime scene. Emails with altered timestamps. PDF work orders with metadata showing they were edited after completion. Slack messages where Stan joked about massaging the numbers. And that copied signature of mine? I found the original file it came from. With a simple compare scan, I could prove it had been lifted. And then I found the big one. An internal memo from Stan to a senior manager. Just finalized the Westwood audit. We need them to sign off before Friday's review. Use Jessica's report if needed. The Westwood audit. That was the government client. The one that couldn't afford technical errors because they were part of a federal infrastructure program. It was fraud. Plain and simple. And they'd used me to do it. I sat there for a long time, the low hum of my computer fan the only sound in the room. I could have walked away. Gotten a new job. Started fresh. But if they'd doctored my work, they'd do it to someone else. Maybe to cover up something worse. I opened a new email draft. Addressed it to the legal contact listed on the Westwood contract, whose info I remembered from when we were first on board. Subject line, concerning documentation related to your recent audit. I attached everything. And hit send. No turning back now. After I sent the email to Westwood's legal team, the adrenaline wore off like the tail end of a caffeine crash. I sat in my dark apartment, staring at the sent confirmation like it might explode. My phone stayed silent. My inbox even more so. I didn't expect an instant reply. I wasn't naive, but part of me hoped someone on the other end would see what I saw and say, yes. You're right. We'll fix this. Instead, I waited. 2 days. Then 3. In the meantime, I filed for unemployment. I updated my resume. I drank too much coffee and avoided calls from curious ex-coworkers. What could I say to them anyway? Hey, remember how I got fired for staff reductions? Turns out I might have helped bring down our entire compliance department. On day 5, I finally got the call. Hi, is this Jessica? The voice was professional, clipped, legal department clipped. This is she. This is Naomi Patel, legal counsel for Westwood Infrastructure. We've reviewed the materials you submitted. Are you available for a conversation under formal NDA conditions? That was the moment I knew this was real. Not some paranoid fever dream. Not me being overly dramatic or disgruntled. Real. We scheduled the call. She emailed me a non-disclosure agreement. I signed it and sent it back within 20 minutes. When we spoke that afternoon, Naomi was calm but serious. Her team had already started internal reviews. The documentation I provided aligned with some concerns they'd previously flagged but hadn't been able to prove. You've been very helpful, she said after we walked through everything. And candidly very brave. I didn't feel brave. I felt like a girl with an old Lenovo laptop and a pile of receipts that could bring a company to its knees. What happens now? I asked. We're preparing to file a formal complaint. There will be audits. Possibly legal action. If we need further assistance or testimony, would you be open to that? I took a breath. Yes. Whatever it takes. Naomi paused. I should also mention, we're exploring our future relationships with vendors. Your name came up, positively. Someone may be reaching out soon. She didn't elaborate. But something in her voice told me this wasn't over. Not even close. Naomi wasn't bluffing. Less than a week after our call, I got a message from an unfamiliar number. It was short, polite, and impossible to ignore. Hi, Jessica. My name is Arjun Malik, Director of Operations at Verity Systems. We work with Westwood and heard about your situation. Are you open to consulting opportunities? Consulting. Not assistant. Not support. Not junior. Consulting. I called him back that same day. Arjun explained that Verity was one of Westwood's primary tech oversight partners. They reviewed external vendors, audited code bases, ensured compliance. In other words, the people who watch the watchers. We've wanted to bring in someone with hands-on experience from the vendor side for a while now, he said. Someone with backbone. Your name came up as a, let's say, ideal candidate. I blinked at my laptop. half expecting a hidden camera to pop out from behind my bookshelf. "You do know I was fired, right?" I asked, just to make sure we weren't skipping over that minor detail. Arjun chuckled. "I think you'll find we see that very differently. The way we heard it, you saw something wrong and acted on it. That's what we want in our consultants, not what we punish." It was the first time anyone had said something like that to me. He sent over a scope document that afternoon, 6-month contract, full benefits, flexible hours, and pay that made my jaw tighten just reading it. Nearly double what I was making before. I signed the offer the next morning. That same day, a headline popped up on my phone's newsfeed. Local IT firm under federal audit following whistleblower tip. No names. No direct mention of me. But the firm in question? Mine. Formerly mine. I read the article 3 times. Apparently, several high-value clients had requested audits at once. Westwood's legal team had triggered a broader review under the False Claims Act. And I knew something else, something the article didn't say, but I could feel in my bones. Stan was going to be in deep. And I didn't feel even a little bit sorry. As I closed the news app, I noticed another notification, a message from Paul, my soda-slurping coworker from the old office. "Hey, just saw the news. Everyone's freaking out. I don't know what you did, but damn. Hope you're okay. Also good for you." I stared at it for a minute. Smiled. Typed back one word. "Thanks." A month into my contract at Verity Systems, the audit results dropped like a bomb. My old company, let's just call them Lansdowne Tech, because saying their real name still leaves a sour taste, was fined into next week. The final tally? Mid-7 figures. Enough to make headlines in 3 regional business journals. Enough to wipe out their quarterly profits and then some. They blamed documentation inconsistencies. The CEO released a carefully worded statement about internal process improvements and renewed commitment to transparency. PR speak for "we got caught, and now we're trying to make it look like it was an innocent upsie." Stan's name didn't appear in the article. But I knew. Word travels fast in tech circles, especially among project managers who play fantasy football together and drink overpriced lattes at the same 3 cafes. "Stan resigned last week," Paul messaged me one afternoon. I replied voluntarily. "Paul, let's just say HR was waiting with a folder." Good. What no article mentioned, what no audit could fully capture, was how much people like Stan built their careers on the quiet compliance of people like me. People who worked late to clean up messes we didn't make. Who stayed silent because speaking up meant risking everything. And yet here I was. Still standing. One evening, I was reviewing some documentation templates for Verity when my inbox pinged with a message that froze me mid-scroll. From linda.marsh@lansdowntech.com. Subject, request for reference. I stared at it for a long time. Linda. The HR rep who fired me with her brittle little script and zero eye contact. Now she was reaching out? I opened it. "Hi, Jessica. I hope you're well. We're in the process of updating our internal compliance training and would greatly value your input. Would you be open to a short consult call to share your experience? Best regards, Linda Marsh." A part of me wanted to reply with something snarky. Something that would sting. But I didn't. I just archived it. No reply. No drama. Because I wasn't here to make them feel better about cleaning up the mess I warned them about. I was done being useful only after the damage was done. And maybe, just maybe, my silence would say more than any reply ever could. The first time I walked into Verity's headquarters, I felt like a spy in enemy territory. Glass walls, smart desks, the soft thrum of keyboards, and ambition. People moved fast but smiled when they passed each other. No passive-aggressive sighs. No Stan slamming drawers in frustration, just loud enough for everyone to hear. It was unnerving. In a good way. By my second month, I had my own office. Nothing fancy, just a corner space with a decent chair, 2 monitors, and a window that overlooked a grocery store parking lot. But to me, it was the Taj Mahal. My job was to review compliance practices across various vendors and help Verity avoid the exact mess Lansdowne had stepped in. And for once, people actually listened. At my 3rd strategy meeting, someone tried to downplay an inconsistency in a reporting tool. "It's probably just a formatting bug," he said, waving it off. I leaned forward. "Or it's the start of a pattern. You ignore the first breadcrumb, you miss the whole trail." The room went quiet. Then Arjun smiled. "This is why we brought her in." That moment? That was the turning point. I wasn't the outsider anymore. I was the expert. The one who had walked through fire and come out with a sharper eye. Word got around. Recruiters began slipping into my inbox like cats through an open window. A few even referenced the Lansdowne scandal like it was a badge of honor. One startup CEO called me an accountability assassin. I wasn't sure how to feel about that, but hey, brand's a brand. And then came the internal offer. Arjun asked to meet for lunch. No calendar invite, no preamble. Jessica, he said over curry bowls in the office cafe, we want you to stay. Full-time. Director of Compliance Strategy. I nearly choked on a piece of naan. We'll match your current rate, add equity, and give you your pick of 2 junior analysts to build out your team. The board's on board. So am I. I nodded slowly, heart pounding. Not because I didn't want it. Because for the first time in a long while, I felt wanted. Deal, I said. And just like that, I had a seat at the table, my table. Becoming a director came with a new badge, a nicer chair, and an inbox that never slept. But it also came with something I hadn't felt in years, autonomy. I could steer the ship, not just patch leaks. My first big project? Overhauling Verity's third-party review process, ironically, the same system that failed to flag Lansdowne before things blew up. Now it was my job to ensure that never happened again. Talk about poetic justice. I recruited a team, including a whip-smart analyst named Kay who reminded me of, well, me. 3 years ago. Eager, sharp, always scribbling notes and asking questions no one else dared. The kind of person you bet on. You're going to be running this place in 5 years, I told her once. She laughed, but I meant it. Meanwhile, whispers from the old world still found me. Paul sent occasional updates. Stan moved to some obscure firm. Not even in IT anymore. Something about logistics? They laid off the whole onboarding team. Everyone's trying to jump ship before Q4. I didn't reply much. I'd moved on, but it was like watching the slow decay of a building you used to live in. Familiar, but no longer your home. Then one afternoon, while preparing a presentation for Verity's leadership, I got a call from Naomi Patel, the Westwood lawyer. Jessica, just wanted to let you know we wrapped the final stage of litigation. Lansdowne settled. Confidential terms, but let's just say they won't be faking signatures again. She paused, then added, we also added your compliance model to our internal guidelines. You helped shape that. Thought you'd want to know. I did. Not because I needed the praise, but because it meant something I'd done, something that started with fear and a pit in my stomach, had turned into impact. Real, tangible change. Before we hung up, Naomi said, one more thing. We'd like to add you to our advisory board. Quarterly meetings, strategic input. Compensation included. I sat there stunned. I'd be honored, I said. And I meant it. The girl who got fired in a broom closet of an office was now advising the very clients her former company once lied to. It wasn't just a full circle. It was a new orbit. By the time autumn rolled in, things were running smoother than I thought possible. My team at Verity was humming, streamlining vendor assessments, building predictive models to flag red flags before they became headlines. The CEO even mentioned expanding my department. We need more of whatever you're doing, he joked in a town hall. Jessica's team keeps finding problems before they find us. I smiled, nodded. Let the compliment land. But a part of me still felt restless. Because I kept expecting a call that never came. Not from Lansdowne. They were old news. But from Stan. I thought he might reach out. Some kind of half-baked apology. A hope you're doing well text, maybe even an attempt to explain things. People like him often circle back when the consequences settle in. But nothing. Just silence. At first it bugged me. I wanted that closure. I wanted him to see where I ended up. To know I didn't sink like he probably hoped I would. But eventually I realized something. Stan didn't have the guts. He could forge a signature and fake a report, but he couldn't say one honest thing to the person he burned. That would require a kind of courage he never had. And in a weird way, that was closure enough. One evening, as I was walking to my car after a late meeting, I passed a nearby cafe and caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Jessica, our old receptionist from Lansdowne. She was laughing with a friend, looking happier than I'd ever seen her. I hesitated, then walked in. She noticed me immediately, her face lighting up. Jessica. Oh my God. Director of Compliance now, right? I grinned. You heard. Girl, everyone heard. You're a legend. We talked for 10 minutes, quick catch-up, nothing too deep. But as I walked away, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And other people saw it too. Not just because I'd escaped something broken, but because I'd built something better. 1 year to the day after I was fired, I stood in front of a packed conference room at a national IT ethics summit in DC, delivering a keynote titled, From Whistleblower to Strategist: The Power of Speaking Up. I wasn't nervous. Not anymore. I told the story, not in gritty, gossipy detail, but in clean, clear arcs. The red flags. The fear. The moment I chose action over silence. The fallout. And the rebuild. A room full of professionals nodded along. Some took notes. A few looked like they might cry. I ended with this. Everyone tells you to stay in your lane. Keep your head down. Don't rock the boat. But what no one tells you is this: sometimes rocking the boat is the only way to stop it from sinking. And if you're scared to speak the truth, let me promise you something: keeping quiet? That's even scarier. The applause was immediate and honest. Afterward, a young woman approached me near the snack table. I've been seeing similar things at my company, she said, her voice shaking. I've been too afraid to say anything. I handed her my card. You're not alone. That moment reminded me why I did it. Why it mattered. It wasn't just about the fines Lansdowne paid. Or the promotion. Or even the revenge that fell into my lap like poetic karma. It was about drawing a line. Holding it. And helping others do the same. As I rode the train home that night, watching the city blur past the window, I thought about the version of me who sat in a cold HR office, told she was no longer needed. I wish I could go back and tell her, this isn't the end. It's the beginning. You're about to become someone even stronger. Because here's what I learned. When you speak the truth, even if your voice shakes, you don't just change your story. You change the system. And if that's not revenge, I don't know what is.